You gotta admit, the idea of a school uniform number 5 lurking on the grassy knoll with a rifle is morbidly endearing. Or would he be in the box depository? The Umbrella Academy seemingly came from nowhere in early 2019, offering up a smorgasbord of genres, characters, and superpowers. And guess what? Season number 2 is on its way, baby! But what can we expect to see from our emotional X-Men type siblings? Well, let's not forget that the show is based on the graphic novel series written by Gerard Way, the same guy who brought us a marching Black Parade of the Dead. So expect the weird, wacky, wonderful, and worrisome. Welcome back to The Binger, guys, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at what you can expect from Season 2 of the Netflix series The Umbrella Academy. We're going to be pulling apart storylines from Season 1 and delving into the comics here. So, big ol' spoiler warning right here. It's necessary. Right, so let's get to it. And wait, hang on. Where do you think you're going?
To get a decent cup of coffee.
Okay, we're just going to start without you then. Since you're watching this, we're going to go ahead and assume that you're already up to speed on where things were left off in Season 1. Or should we say when things were left? Which, in this case, none of us have a clue. And before we go any further, we just wanted to make it clear that although we're looking ahead to Season 2, the written comics are actually up to Volume 3. Anyway, although trying to prevent the apocalypse from happening in Season 1, the gang ultimately angers Vanya, who, with her insane hidden powers, destroys the moon and the Earth as a result. Just as the planet is engulfed in fire, number 5 thinks on his feet and zips them back in time to safety. And the lovebirds Hazel and Agnes also escape. But where and when did they go? If they want to prevent the impending apocalypse, the gang will have to manipulate the past in order to stop it from happening. I mean, they could always go back and just leave Vanya alone. I guess that would work. Or they could go back to their youth and try to stop Allison, aka the rumor, from messing with Vanya's memories. Number 5 does say that the apocalypse will always happen and Vanya will always be the cause, unless they do something about fixing her. So piecing back together a childhood filled with resentment seems like a really good place to start. But hang on a second. Despite a trip to their own childhood making sense from a productive point of view, if the comics are anything to go by, then Season 2 will explore Volume 2 of the comics, entitled Dallas. We got snippets of this storyline in Season 1, but essentially it revolves around number 5 being given the task of assassinating JFK by the Temps Commission. You know, those people who make sure the timeline happens as it's supposed to? Now, of course, being number 5, he rebels and the whole thing gets really complicated. In the comics, the other characters are heavily involved in the storyline, with Allison even taking the place of Jackie Kennedy during JFK's assassination, which is crazy. Gerard Way, you're a maniac. We love you. If we do explore this whole storyline from the comics in Season 2, then it's going to no doubt feed into the whole butterfly effect side of things, which means ultimately it's going to help save the world. We can only assume, anyway. You gotta admit, the idea of a school uniform number 5 lurking on the grassy knoll with a rifle is morbidly endearing. Or would he be in the box depository? No. We don't have time for that. Ultimately, Vanya ended up causing the apocalypse because she resented her siblings for excluding her throughout her childhood. And as we mentioned earlier, Allison wiped her memory to convince her that she didn't have powers, which was the one thing that made Vanya different and ultimately isolated her from her siblings her entire life. Of course, this is important going forward because they still have to get on with one another and probably forgive and forget. Whenever they zip back in time and Vanya comes to, there's going to be a lot of strong, awkward, and confusing emotions flying about. At least we know that Allison, who got her throat cut by Vanya and survived, has already forgiven her sister for her wrongdoings, something that takes much longer in the comics. The big question is, how are Luther and Diego going to act around Vanya? They were the ones who were certain that she couldn't be trusted when she went off the rails, and locking her in a vault was the straw that broke the camel's back. As anyone who has ever had a sibling qualm will know, unfortunately the best route is probably just to hash it out. Regardless, it will give us an interesting dynamic in Season 2. And if they want Vanya to avoid destroying the world again in the past, they're gonna have to help her rein in her emotionally triggered powers. I wonder if Vanya has lost her hearing though due to the gunshot, and if that's gonna affect the way that she uses her sound harnessing powers. So, we've talked about the members of the Academy, but what about its founder, Sir Reginald Hargreaves, nicknamed the Monocle, the wealthy entrepreneurial alien? Oh yeah, he's an alien. Something that's mentioned super early on in the comics and then not mentioned ever again. It would definitely explain why he lacks any interpersonal skills. So, that's a potential tangent that the season could shoot off on. Anyway, we know he snatched up the gifted children when they were born. But today, we wanted to focus on the Monocle's monocle. In the comics, Hargreaves' monocle gives him the ability to see everything about a person, be it their past, present, or potential powers. So it's a pretty powerful thing. In fact, we think it's why Hargreaves was so quick to dismiss the young Harold Jenkins in Season 1, who said he was born the same day as the kids in the Academy and therefore must have powers. Hargreaves must have used his monocle to see that Jenkins was just a normal kid. Still, he didn't have to be so rude about it, you know? The gang spends a bit of time in Season 1 looking for the monocle, but its true potential isn't really explained. All we know is that Sir Reginald is never seen without it, but it seems a bit random that they would write it into Season 1 for this reason alone. So maybe we will see one of the Academy sporting it in Season 2. It would go brilliantly with number 5's already oxymoronic ensemble. Also, speaking of Hargreaves, we can't not talk about the glowing container scene from the final episode. In a scene that alludes to his past, we see him seemingly watching over another apocalypse on what looks to be a different planet, as he releases some sort of swirling dust from a container. Fingers crossed this will all get a little clearer in Season 2. Another potential plot point for Season 2 could be the other 36 babies who were born on the same day as the Academy. Now, we're told in the comics that these babies, they didn't survive, and not much else is said about it. But, given the relationship between Klaus and Ben, the fact that Ben isn't alive, but Klaus can harness his powers, we could see the spirits of the other 36 children introduced into the story. Who knows, maybe some of them are still alive. And we may also get some insight into how Ben actually died. All we know is that it was pretty gruesome, but hopefully Season 2 will give us a bit more background on it. As the gang are going back in time, possibly to when they were kids, or who knows, even earlier maybe, the other 36 kids could easily come into the story. In fact, in Volume 2 of the comics, Klaus talks with God, as you do, who says that the 43 spontaneously born children were basically the second coming of Christ. So, given that, death is hardly gonna be the end-all be-all factor for the fate of these 36 remaining children. Will they somehow help the gang, or will they turn out to be supervillains? And speaking of supervillains, due to the nature of the Umbrella Academy story, Season 1 didn't really give us any conventional, all-out bad guys. I mean, sure, Cha-Cha and Hazel made things difficult for the gang, and Vanya did kinda go bad at the end there, but we're talking about proper supervillains, like the likes of Joker or Lex Luthor. Not to worry though, the comics harbor plenty of potential. So far, the comics have given us big villains like Dr. Terminal and Mr. Perseus, and their storylines span multiple volumes in the comics. So it's anyone's guess as to whether either of them will make an appearance in Season 2. But both of them have seriously cool backstories, with Perseus being the head of an evil corporation who is looking to run weird experiments and rescue his father from the dreaded prison of Hotel Oblivion. And then there's Dr. Terminal, leader of the Terminauts, who, due to something called Eisenstein syndrome, which is a brain condition, has to feed on everyone and everything to prolong his life. The guy literally eats people to stop his brain from deteriorating. And he too resides in the Hotel Oblivion prison, plotting his revenge on the Academy, due to them taking him down in Volume 1. It's no secret that show and movie makers can deviate from the source material when it comes to storytelling. Sometimes it's due to artistic license, and other times it's from lack of a properly fleshed out story. I'm sorry, but we've got to mention Game of Thrones. a series which became its own entity away from the books, much to the dismay of fans. And then the rest is history. Thankfully, it looks like Umbrella Academy creator Gerard Way has a clear vision laid out for both the comics and the TV series. When setting out to make the series, Way gave the showmakers an outline of the entire plot of what is eventually going to be 8 volumes. And keep in mind, he's already ahead of the TV series with Volume 3 already in the bag. We're hoping that with his vision and clear outlining of an overarching story, what we get on our TV screens will be an accurate, or at least a very close representation of the comics, which, going by Gerard Way's brilliantly bohemian storylines and characters, will be a very good thing. So ultimately, this means we may get up to 8 seasons of the Umbrella Academy.
Must have just hopped out.
And as to when Season 2 will be released, we've been previously told that it takes around 18 months to make a season. So going by that, we can likely expect to see Season 2 hit Netflix in the latter part of 2020. Man, if only we could time travel and go there and watch it right now. So, when do you think the gang is? And what do you want to see in Season 2? Be sure to let us know in the comment section down below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to The Binger for more awesome videos like this one. See you next time.